Welcome to Powered by Her, exploring the stories of how area women power their business. Hear from the growing network of female entrepreneurs of the Upper Cumberland with your host, Tiffany Anton, director at the Biz Foundry. Powered by Her starts now.
Hi, you're listening to Powered by Her in the Hinson Oakley Podcast Center. I'm Tiffany Anton, Director of Outreach and Engagement at the Biz Foundry, and I have Ashley Waters from Waters Law today. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Tiffany.
Thanks for coming in. So you're kind of a different type of entrepreneur than the other women that we've had on. So you you did not start off as Waters Law. You did not start off as your own entity.
That's right.
So this is kind of a newer development for you.
So in October of last year, I decided to open my own law practice and go out on my own. Before that, I've been practicing law for about 6 to 7 years now.
And what kind of law do you do?
So I focus my practice on estate planning and estate administration. So everything you can think of, wills, trusts, all different kinds of trusts, powers of attorney, all of that, on the planning side, pre-death planning, and then also on the administration side. So when someone passes away, there are various things that we have to do depending on how their estate was set up or maybe not set up, not planned for. So we do that side as well. So both the estate planning and administration side. Okay. So that's how I focus my practice.
Okay. So then you were just mentioning that you were with, you've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years, and you were practicing somewhere else at first.
Right. So I started, actually entered into the legal field as a law clerk. While I was in law school, I went to Nashville School of Law. So I was going to school at night, driving to Nashville, and I was working during the day. And I ended up getting a job with Joy Gothard, who ended up being my law partner later on. But I was her law partner for a few years while I finished law school. And then when I graduated, I became an associate and worked for her for a couple of years. And then she brought me on as a partner. So we were a partnership for a few years. And then we made the very difficult decision for me to go out on my own, mid last year. So opened my own practice in October.
And was that just a choice that you made, that you felt like it was just the right time? Had you always kind of been planning for that to happen?
So the timing was right, but it was really more of an inner self-reflection that I had been going through over the past several years, just trying to figure out what I really wanted out of my career. And I never really knew if I wanted to be on my own or really part of a big firm or a small firm. I never really had a specific goal or an idea. I just, wanted to be happy and to enjoy what I did.
And kind of what you did to start off is you just stayed. You just stayed. You got this first job as kind of an intern or entry-level position while you're still in school to kind of learn the ropes. And then, okay, well, I can stay and kind of learn more and be an apprentice under her. And you just stayed. I
did. And I loved it. And Joy, she was my mentor. She still is my mentor. I can attribute a lot of what I know to her. I think I was really blessed whenever I entered into the legal field to find myself in a law firm where the focus was on this area of law, because I really enjoyed that. So right off the bat, I found myself, practicing in an area that I really, really enjoyed. So I'm very lucky that I didn't have to test out a lot of different areas of practice to figure out what I didn't like. I just kind of landed in a really great area to start. So it was a great place to be for a long time. And I grew a lot and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Joy. I learned a lot from the other girls that we worked with and from my clients. And just in, your first few years of practice is a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out how you do things and how, I struggled a lot at first with the way that Joy would deal with clients or the way that Joy would handle a situation and the way I might handle it would be different.
Finding your own identity.
Finding my own identity and how to, the practice of law is so unique and you have to be confident and you can't always, just the way someone else does it. Sometimes I learned a lot from her. There were a lot of things that she taught me that if I had done it my way, I probably would have messed up more, but then there were other things that I learned from her that, that's not the way that I do it. And it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just figuring out how I, work best with my clients.
So we talked a little bit about this before, you and I have, and when you made this decision, and it was a difficult decision for you to go out on your own, but it was kind of just the time to spread your wings. It was not, there wasn't bad blood. It wasn't that things weren't going the right way. It was like, it's just time to be able to do this myself. And there's a lot more that goes into Waters law than just practicing law.
Absolutely. The practice of law is one, it's a big component, but it's just one of the many, the many things. And I think that's where a lot of lawyers struggle, because when you, in law school, they don't teach you how to run a business. And, maybe if you join a large firm and you're just, a workhorse and, you work your way up, you don't need to know all of the HR parts and all of the finance parts and marketing parts and all of those different things, because that's not what you do. But when you have a small business, whether it's a partnership or you're a solo lawyer, you have to do all of those. You have to wear all those hats yourself, or find people to work with you that you can delegate those tasks to, that you can trust, so you can, outsource them. But yeah, it's being, not only do I have this profession and I have all of these rules and ethical standards that I have to maintain and all these rules that I have to follow as a professional, but I also have a business to run, and it has to be profitable. And it is a business in the aspect of, like, you develop a logo and you have your space and you have an overhead cost where you don't have that when you're part of a big firm, like you said. We're going to talk about that in a second. In case you're just joining us, we have Ashley Waters from Waters Law in. You're in the Hinson Oakley Podcast Center, and you're listening to Powered by Her. So how did you learn? How are you learning how to run a business? So you have had an entrepreneurial family. Your husband owned a business for many years, and his parents own a business. And does your side of the family have entrepreneurial genes in there? Not so much. So I actually, when I graduated from MTSU, is where I went for my undergrad, I actually went from there to the University of Mississippi and got my MBA. So I have a little bit of the educational background. Which is not really. Which is still, they don't really teach you how to really run a business. And then my mom is a realtor. She's been a realtor for over 30 years, I think. I hope that's right. She won't kill me, but she's been a realtor for a long time. And she owned her own, she had some partners, but they owned their own real estate company for a long time. So I guess, she does sort of have that background, but that's not what she doesn't really enjoy it probably as much as I do. So I don't really have that so much in my DNA. Yeah. But I am drawn to it, and my husband's side. So that's interesting. So you were the wife of an entrepreneur for years, and that didn't scare you away. That didn't deter you from deciding to start off on your own. No, I'm kind of a risk taker. I've never been afraid to go out on a limb. And, I think that the decision to open my own practice and start my own business, the difficult part of it wasn't the risk of, starting a business and all of those things that go with that. It was the decision of leaving, where I was comfortable. Yeah. Not from it wasn't about whether I can run a business successfully. It was just leaving the nest. Leaving the nest. That was the tough part for me. Yeah, that is hard. So as a kid, did you always want to be a lawyer? Was that pretty much? Yeah. So growing up, everyone. I can pretty much argue any point to anyone at any time. And so my family would always joke with me and say, you should be a lawyer, when you grow up. But
a state.
I know. So, and I'm actually very happy that the area that I ended up choosing to practice in it's not very adversarial, which is really nice. There are a lot of areas of practice where you take your workload home with you in the sense that, you just can't let it go.
And it's an emotional toll, which everybody's career is an emotional toll. I get that. But, you're carrying other people's burdens and emotions along with you. And there's some of that in what I do. But for the most part, it's, I get to help people, and I don't really have to get sideways with other lawyers too often or clients or anything like that. And it's pretty cut and dry, like black and white. These are the things that you need. These are the things that are going to help you, set yourself up at the end.
It's cut and dry that, that everyone needs a lawyer like me, whether it's me or someone else, but everyone needs to plan for their future, for their death, as much as you hate to think about it. Everyone needs to do that kind of planning. Everyone's situation is unique though. And so there are so many different directions you could go with a particular client, depending on what their family structure looks like and what their assets look like and liabilities and what their goals are. And so, there are a lot of different, it's kind of, it's an outlet sort of for creativity in a weird kind of nerdy way, because, somebody comes to me and says, here's what I've got. And then I can look at it and say, hey, this is what I think we need to do. And I can be kind of creative in what I recommend. But yeah.
Where are you getting the support for running a business? So you've been doing this now for a few months. And just there is this it's a lot more than I thought it might be. So where are you have an MBA, you're drawing on that a little bit, but where are you drawing on the resources of knowing how to run a business?
Well, it was hard for me, I think, to figure out that, I've been a work in progress trying to learn to ask for help. But I have managed to surround myself with people that seem to know, more about these areas than what I do. So, I've got friends that know more about marketing than I do. And I have friends that, know more about finance than I do. I have an accountant that I can call on. I have a husband that ran a successful business for, over 10 years. So he's obviously a resource for me. So I've been able to draw on kind of my team and not in a professional sense team, but just my friends, my tribe. And they're not all women, but, and then also we
allow people to be friends with not women.
Well, when you say tribe, it has that female connotation. It does
a little bit, but yeah. I think that, I think that co-working in the aspect of having all different aspects of people is so important, whether it's, the nerdy techie people or those are all the people that need to be in your tribe because they all offer something different. Well,
and so law is actually my second career. After I graduated with my MBA, I worked for 2 different engineering companies, basically in project management before I decided to go back to law school at night. So the second company I worked for was Flexsteel Corporation, and one of the owners, the founder, Rick Larsen, said something a long time ago to me that I've never forgotten, and it was that it's better to be really good at 1 or 2 things than to be mediocre at everything. And so I've always remembered that, and as much as you want to have ownership and responsibility and do all of the things that you need to do to run your business,
especially when your name is on the door,
right? And that carries a lot of weight. Your reputation is at stake, but you have to learn how to delegate and how to ask for help and how to rely on other people to support you, because you can't do it all. Or if you choose to do it all, you can't do it all really well. Mm-hmm. And so in my profession, if I don't do it all really well, then, my law license is on the line. My clients, their plan, what they've come to me for, is on the line. I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air that could fall. So,
and I think especially in this area, there's a lot of word of mouth reputation that goes along with it. And if you mess something up, this town wants to let people know. But if you're doing a great job, this town wants to let people know as well.
Right.
So it can carry a lot of weight. In case you're just joining us, you're listening to Powered by Her in the Hinson Oakley Podcast Center. I have Ashley Waters from Waters Law in here, and she has recently gone out and started your own business, your own law firm. And so you haven't been doing it a ton of time, but even maybe in the prep, was there a time where you thought, nope, like I don't want to leave the safety of the nest, or I'd like to go back to the safety of that nest? Or
I never, once I made the decision, I didn't really look back. And I mean, that's just kind of how I am. I don't procrastinate when it comes to making decisions. I can pretty much, if I know I need to do something, I make a decision, I move on, I don't regret it. So once I decided to do it, I was all in. But the process of making that decision literally took, it was years that, and I don't mean 6 years, but I mean, it was a couple of years of me really soul searching and trying to figure out what I wanted out of my career, and whether where I was going to, propel me to that point or not. And so I really struggled with the decision for a long time, as just to make the decision. But then once I made it, I was all in, and I didn't look back.
What do you think the benefits are for as lawyers, the benefits to starting your own practice and not just staying under the wings of a larger firm? Or
Well, I think it's really important for fresh out lawyers to work with someone else, under someone else, so that they can learn. You don't learn in law school. You learn a lot of theory. Depending on what school you go to, it's more practical. Some are more practical than others, but they do not teach you how to run a business. And when you graduate, you come out, you don't have any forms. You don't have any knowledge of, even how to file something in the court system. I mean, all you've learned is what you've learned in school. You have no practical experience. So I think it's important for every new lawyer to start out with someone, or at least with a good mentor that can help them and guide them. But then as far as going out on your own, for me, the real benefit was one of the things that I wanted to do. It's going to sound bad, but I wanted to work smarter, not harder. And I don't mean that I don't work hard, because I believe I do work very hard. But in terms of efficiency and streamlining things and figuring out how to make my practice more efficient, because if I can turn something that would normally take me an hour to do into something that takes 30 minutes to do, then I can pass that savings along to my client. I don't have to charge them as much to do that specific thing. So working smarter, not harder, is both for me and for my clients. But that was one of the goals that I had when I went out on my own. And I think that in being on my own, I've been able to really take advantage of a lot of the technology that is out there for law firms, and just kind of do things my own way. And I know that I'll make mistakes. I've made mistakes already, but they're my mistakes, and I own them. And I can, recover. It's nothing that's going to set me back too far. But
and you can adjust and steer your path in whatever way you want to.
Yeah. And I've really had a lot of fun with, trying to create a culture at my new office that is kind of different, I think, than most law firms. That I think a lot of people think of law firms as being dark and stuffy, and people are intimidated. Not everyone, but a lot of people are intimidated to go to a law office or to call a lawyer. And I've tried to remove all of those barriers. I think even just from the moment that you walk into my office, it's light, it's airy, it's fresh.
You'll put cartoons on for the kids.
I've done that already. Yeah, I've got TVs, and I've had, clients who've brought children in. And, I've got my my Netflix and Amazon and YouTube TV hooked up. And so the kids can watch what they need to watch and stay entertained, and parents can focus, on what they need to focus on, and hopefully not worry about the kids.
Well, and that is interesting. That's an aspect of this too. You are a female business owner, but you're also a mother. So you understand how to reach people who are in their mid-30s who have young children, because that is a really important age to start thinking about estate planning. And so you kind of do have that aspect that, okay, I'm going to figure out what I need to do to get these clients in here who really need these services.
I think that everyone knows that they need to plan, for their death. But when you're young, you feel somewhat invincible. You don't need a will until you need a will, and then it's too late. Mm-hmm. So as people grow older, or, have experiences with family members who pass away, they start to realize, they start to realize, oh, I need to do this planning. But it really should be starting a lot earlier than that. With your will, that's where you get to designate who the guardian of your children will be. And you want to take that life insurance that you've got and put it in a trust for them. You don't, you want to make sure it's protected and that they're protected. And so I've tried to put myself in those clients' shoes, which is easy because, I am a mom of 2 kids and a wife. And so, I'm trying to educate that younger age group about why they need to do the estate planning. And I'm trying to make it easier for them to do it as well. So, trying to be flexible and meet at times that's convenient for them. Mm-hmm. And trying to produce an environment that, they can feel like they can bring their kids if they need to. And
well, it's interesting. Like you said, you kind of have a different environment. And I think so many people think, oh, well, wills and estate planning, that's for like 70-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And your office environment is not like that. It's, you have candy in the, in the waiting room and stuff like that. And you have just a different vibe for those 30-something, younger crowd. A 20-something might not feel I'm so out of place. I should be 70 to walk in here.
Right. But the 70-year-olds love it too.
Yeah.
Everyone who walks in the door, I think, you come to my office and you're going to be talking, you're going to be talking about death and taxes.
Yeah.
I'm not a CPA, but taxes are a big part of estate planning and estate administration. And so, you're already dreading it, and it's a heavy topic. And so to come in and, it's light and it's bright and it's fresh. And I think it just helps to lighten the mood. And I've noticed, I have noticed in my meetings with clients, the mood really is different, because it doesn't feel quite so heavy. Mm-hmm. In the office. It's really interesting how much your environment can affect your mood and all that.
And people, you hear this, but you've kind of been able to test that yourself of like just the colors on the wall or the curtains and the lighting. You've kind of been able to test that with your work environment. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. To see the changes that.
And it seems silly, but it's really not. It was really important to me when I started my practice to have everything ready to go. And so, I didn't want people thinking I was leaving my partnership and I didn't know what I was doing, and I couldn't manage it on my own. And so I really invested in getting my office to a place where it was really functional, and I was very intentional about everything I brought into my office. If it didn't serve a purpose for my staff or for a client, then why were we bringing it in? So, I have been able to kind of test that out, and it's the feedback that I've gotten from it has been really, really great and positive. And I feel like it also affects the culture. With my staff. I have one full-time paralegal that I brought with me. And then I've got a part-time person who's working. She's just working through the month of January, and I'm probably going to be hiring someone else pretty soon. But I think that even just coming into this environment that feels good makes you want to come to work, and
well, I think
it makes everybody feel better.
That is, as an entrepreneur, you get to set that tone. As the business owner, you get to set the tone of the environment that you create for your team. And so if you want to set a light, a tone where people feel like they have a say and they have a buy-in to the business, you have that choice to kind of set it however you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty exciting, especially like I said, when your name's on the door, that's just a different feel than even when there's two names, a co-partnership. So if you're just joining us, you're listening to Powered by Her in the Hinton Oakley Podcast Center. I'm Tiffany Anton from the Biz Foundry, and I'm Ashley Waters from Waters Law. Have there been any times, even when you were in a partnership, where you just had a really tough time or challenges of the business aspect that you were going through? Maybe just not even knowing how to hire the right people, how to find the right people. What marketing aspects? How do you find new clients? Any difficult times that you really went through?
Well, I think that what I'm doing in my practice now is very different than how we did things in our partnership. And, we didn't do really any advertising in the partnership. Hiring is always an issue, trying to find good qualified employees. I think no matter what industry you're in, that's always a challenge. And we've faced our fair share of challenges in the partnership. I haven't had to hire anyone, permanently in my new business just yet because I brought my paralegal over with me. So that is something I'm dreading because I know it's going to be challenging to find someone who is the right fit for us. But yeah, I think that I still have a lot of those challenges that I will be facing because my business is still so new that I'm like, for instance, this morning I just had a meeting about doing some radio advertising, and that's very new to me and it's kind of scary. But, I feel like if I surround myself with the right people who know, more about that than I do, then together, we can figure it out. So,
and it's just, so how do you balance running a business and doing your job? How do you set aside the time to say, okay, I'm going to set aside this much time to look at marketing?
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that?
Not really well right now, but this transitional time has taken a lot of the business, and getting the business side of it going has required a lot of my focus. And so, I have worked more than my, 40 hours a week in the first several months of my business, just trying to be able to get it all done because I don't want my clients to suffer,
to feel that squeeze,
right. I don't want them to feel like I'm putting them on the back burner so I can focus on myself, but it's all equally important. So,
well, and you kind of have to tell yourself too, I think it may feel not right to spend an hour on advertising when you have an hour of somebody's estate to be planning, but they're both so important.
And you really I can't plan someone's estate if I don't have a business. Mm-hmm. So in a way, there are certain things that you have to prioritize on the business side above the actual work. But then it's really hard to find that balance. That is something that I've struggled with from day one, because even when since when I started the partnership with Joy, and I took on a lot of the office management responsibilities. So a lot of what I'm doing now, I was kind of doing before, but we did it differently then. But I struggled with that. And one thing I learned a couple years ago, I started reading a lot of self-help books. And one of the takeaways that I had that I implemented just immediately was setting boundaries for appointments. And I used to they would schedule me. I mean, there may be one day where I'd have 6 appointments, and then there may be another day where I had 1. And then, so I really kind of took ownership of my schedule. I didn't schedule the appointments myself, but I budgeted when am I going to see clients. And I take appointments generally, and I make concessions depending on the circumstances, but 9 a.m. 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. And so that way I'm done with my appointments by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I can use those later hours in the day to focus on stuff that I might need either to work on, things for clients or to work on things for the business, even just paying bills and things like that. So when I get in the morning, I've got a little bit of time before my first appointment. I have some time during lunch if I need it. And then I have time at the end of the day. So I've tried to do that. And then I also go through and I block out days. I figure if I, have a certain number of appointments that is my goal to set each week. And then I try to block out the extra time so that no one schedules me appointments during that time. So I can then personally, I can look at that. I can look at my workload client-wise, and then I can look at what I need to do for the business, and I can sit, each day and kind of prioritize what I'm going to do that day. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you got really big into reading self-help books.
I did.
Any, I know you're a Brene Brown fan.
I love Brene Brown. She changed my life.
Any other specific authors or books that you would recommend to other female entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I started I first kind of got into this self-help kick with Brene Brown. Mm-hmm. And I was reading the Kick-Ass Life book. Andrea Owen, I think, is the author. I was on a plane. I was listening to a podcast, and she was on the podcast. So I purchased her book and read her book, and it was good. And then she has a podcast. I was listening to her podcast, and Brene Brown was on her podcast. So that was my introduction to Brene Brown. And so she was promoting her Daring Greatly book, and I purchased that book, and that book really did a number on me. It probably won't for everyone in the same way, but it was just the right book at the right time for me. And it was about vulnerability and how, especially in our society, being vulnerable is like a big no-no. It's considered weak. But how,
especially in the women sector of society.
And I'm in a very male-dominated profession too. So, you add that on top of it.
And I'm guessing a male-dominated sector of your profession.
Right. So, but Brene preaches that being vulnerable is really a sign of strength, and it's really being very brave. And so that book in and of itself was really critical for me. And then from there, I read all of her books. She has several books. I've read all of her books. And then there's another author, Jen Sincero. She writes You're a Badass.
Yes.
And she's got, I think, a series of books now, like there's You're a Badass and You're a Badass at Making Money and You're a Badass at whatever. Mm-hmm. And she's really great too. So that was a good book for me. And then for lawyers, there's a great book that I'm in the middle of it right now, and it's really helping me. We were talking about resources earlier and what, people are important resources, but in my profession, there are a lot of technological resources. I guess that's the right way to say that.
Yeah. Well, you just admit, you said to switch over to be by on your own, you've been able to use a lot of technology.
Yeah. Trying to work smarter, not harder, and find ways to, stretch our resources out and use them more wisely. And so this book, it's called The Lawyerist. It's a podcast, and it's like Sam Glover and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they're both lawyers, and they wrote a book called The Small Firm Roadmap, and I'm reading that now. And that's been really helpful just from the legal, standpoint. It's a lot about how to practice in a small firm or a solo firm. And they have a whole thing that they do. You can pay to be members of their group. I don't remember what they're called, but so those are the books that probably stand out to me the most.
Shaped you to kind of where you're at today.
Yeah. And there have been others, but I would say Brene Brown was definitely she was my...
Your eyes light up.
I love her. Yeah. And I would say too that I listened to the Jenna Kutcher, the Gold Digger podcast, as much as I can. And that was really my turning point. I was listening to that podcast this summer, and Jen Sincero was a guest on her podcast. And I've read the book, but hearing Jen Sincero talk about it, it just kind of clicked for me in a different way. And she was talking about your goals and how if you're not moving towards your goals, you're moving away from your goals. And so everything just kind of fell into place. So, but that goes back to that You're a Badass book.
Yeah, and kind of got you to the point where it was like, okay, it's time to spread my wings.
Yeah.
Yeah. In case you're just joining us, we have Ashley Waters from Waters Law in the Hinson Oakley Podcast Center. You're listening to Powered by Her, and I'm Tiffany Anton, Director of Engagement and Outreach at the Biz Foundry. So, Ashley, how can people find you? How can they find Waters Law? How do they connect with you?
So they can call me, 931-559-2889. We have a website. It's www.waters.law. So it's a little different.
Okay.
And we're located at 116 South Locust, Suite A. Yeah, that's right. Why did my mind go blank? Suite A. It's new construction. So when you pull it up on Google Map, it looks like it's just an empty field, but it's not. There's actually, they call them office condos.
And you do have social media. Yes.
I have social media. I have Facebook. I have Twitter. I have...
And they can find you on LinkedIn, I'm sure.
LinkedIn,
so.
Yeah. And those are all things that I am in 2020. I'm going to be working on those. They're work in progress.
Yes.
But yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you joining us on Powered by Her and the Hinson Oakley Podcast Center.